Hey there, and welcome to True Scary Stories. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling us where you're from and what time you're watching. That helps YouTube know you love creepy stories, and it'll keep sending more your way.
3 fast food horror stories. Hey everyone. Before we get into tonight's stories, I just want to say, if you've ever worked in fast food, you know how weird things can get. The late night shifts, the strange customers, the empty parking lots at 2 a.m. But sometimes, things go way beyond weird. Tonight, I've got 3 stories sent in by listeners who experienced something truly disturbing while working at, or visiting, fast food restaurants. These stories will make you think twice about ordering from that drive-thru late at night. So turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin. Story 1. The Regular at Burger Haven. This first story comes from a guy named Tyler, who was 19 at the time this happened. He was working the closing shift at a Burger Haven in a small town in Ohio. Now, if you've never worked fast food, you need to understand something. The closing shift is its own kind of hell. You're there until midnight, sometimes later, cleaning grease traps and mopping floors while the manager counts the register. But what Tyler experienced during his closing shifts went way beyond the usual stress. It started about 3 weeks into his job. Tyler was working the drive-thru window, and around 10:45 p.m., this car pulled up. It was an old brown sedan, pretty beat up, with one headlight out. The guy driving didn't order right away. He just sat there. Tyler waited, watching the car through the window monitor. Finally, after almost a full minute of silence, the guy's voice came through the speaker. 1 cheeseburger. No pickles. Large fries. Small Coke. The voice was flat. Monotone. Like he was reading from a script. Tyler rang it up, told him the total, and the car pulled forward. When it got to the window, Tyler got his first look at the driver. The guy was maybe in his 40s, pale skin, thinning hair, wearing a stained gray hoodie. But it was his eyes that Tyler noticed. They were empty. Just staring straight ahead, not blinking, not acknowledging Tyler at all. Tyler handed him the bag and the drink. The guy took them without a word, without even looking at Tyler, and drove off. Weird, sure. But working fast food, you get weird customers all the time. Tyler didn't think much of it. But then the next night, same thing. 10:45 p.m. Brown sedan. Same order. Same lifeless voice. Same dead-eyed stare. And then the night after that. And the night after that. Every single night Tyler worked, this guy showed up at exactly 10:45 p.m. Same car. Same order. Same unsettling routine. Tyler started calling him the Regular in his head. His coworker, Jenny, noticed too. She worked the closing shift with Tyler most nights, and she admitted the guy creeped her out. But their manager just shrugged it off. "We've got regulars," he said. "That's good for business." But this wasn't normal. The guy never spoke beyond his order. Never made eye contact. Never showed any emotion. He'd take his food, and Tyler would watch on the security camera as the brown sedan would pull into the far corner of the parking lot, under a broken streetlight where it was darkest. The car would sit there for exactly 12 minutes. Tyler knew because he timed it. 12 minutes every night. Then the car would leave. After 2 weeks of this, Tyler's curiosity got the better of him. One night, after the Regular pulled into his usual dark spot, Tyler told Jenny he needed to take the trash out. She gave him a look like she knew what he was really doing, but she didn't stop him. Tyler grabbed a trash bag and walked out the back door, circling around toward the parking lot. The brown sedan was still there, parked in the shadows. Tyler could see the guy sitting in the driver's seat, not moving. As Tyler got closer, staying near the dumpster to avoid being seen, he realized something disturbing. The guy wasn't eating. The food was just sitting on the passenger seat untouched. The guy was just staring at the restaurant, staring at the windows, at the drive-thru, at the employees inside. Tyler felt his skin crawl. He quickly dumped the trash and went back inside, his heart pounding. He told Jenny what he'd seen. She looked pale. "Maybe we should tell the manager," she said. But when they did, he brushed them off again. "He's not doing anything illegal. Let it go." But it didn't stop there. A few nights later, Tyler noticed something new. After the regular left, Tyler checked the security footage from the parking lot camera, just out of curiosity. And what he saw made his blood run cold. When the regular drove away each night, he wasn't leaving. Not really. The footage showed the brown sedan driving out of the parking lot, turning right onto the main road, and then circling back. It would park on the side street next to the restaurant, in a spot where you couldn't see it from inside. And it would just sit there. For hours. The timestamp showed the car staying there until well after the restaurant closed, until after Tyler and Jenny left for the night. "Why the hell is he doing that?" Jenny whispered when Tyler showed her the footage. Neither of them had an answer, but they both felt the same creeping dread. Things escalated about a week later. Tyler and Jenny were closing up, locking the doors, when Tyler glanced at the parking lot. The brown sedan was there, in the dark corner. But this time, the regular wasn't inside. The car was empty. Tyler felt panic rising in his chest. He grabbed Jenny's arm and pointed. "Where is he?" Tyler said, his voice shaking. They both scanned the parking lot, the street, the shadows. Nothing. No sign of him. Then Jenny pointed toward the side of the building. "Tyler," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The back door." Tyler's stomach dropped. They always locked the back door, but it was old and sometimes didn't catch properly. They both ran to the back of the restaurant, and when they turned the corner, they saw it. The back door was open. Just a crack. And standing just outside, in the shadows, was the regular. He was facing the door, completely still, hands at his sides. In the dim light, Tyler could see his face. That same blank expression. Those same empty eyes. But now, they were looking right at Tyler. For a moment, nobody moved. Tyler felt like he couldn't breathe. Then the regular took one slow step forward. Jenny screamed. That seemed to break whatever frozen moment they were in. Tyler grabbed Jenny and they both ran to the front of the building, fumbling for Tyler's keys. They jumped in his car and Tyler floored out of the parking lot, not looking back. They called the police from a gas station down the road. When the cops checked the restaurant, the regular was gone. The brown sedan was gone. There was no sign anyone had been there. The back door was closed and locked. The manager was annoyed that they'd called the police over nothing. But Tyler and Jenny knew what they'd seen. Tyler quit the next day. He couldn't do it anymore. Jenny quit a few days later. But here's the thing that still haunts Tyler to this day. About a month after he quit, he was at a friend's house across town. It was late, around 11 p.m. He glanced out the window and saw a brown sedan with one headlight out, parked across the street. Just sitting there. He couldn't see the driver clearly, but he didn't need to. Tyler moved to a different town 3 months later. He's never worked fast food again. And he never orders from a drive-thru late at night. Because he knows the regular is still out there somewhere. Still watching. Still waiting. Story 2, The Manager's Secret. This second story is from a girl named Rachel, who was 17 and working her first job at a fried chicken chain in Florida. She needed money for college, and the job seemed perfect. Easy work, flexible hours, and the manager, a guy named Dennis, seemed nice enough at first. But over time, Rachel started noticing things that didn't add up. And what she eventually discovered still makes her sick to her stomach. Dennis was in his mid-30s, overweight, balding, always wearing the same grease-stained polo shirt. He'd been the manager there for 6 years, and he practically lived at the restaurant. He'd come in early, stay late, and sometimes Rachel would show up for her shift and find him sleeping in the back office. The other employees joked that Dennis had no life outside of work. But Rachel started to realize it was more than that. The restaurant had a walk-in freezer in the back. It was big, industrial, the kind you see in restaurant kitchens. Nothing unusual. But Dennis was obsessed with it. He kept it locked with a padlock, which Rachel thought was weird. When she asked about it, Dennis snapped at her. "That's manager business. Don't worry about it." His tone was harsh, defensive. It was the first time Rachel had seen him act that way. The other employees noticed too. Dennis would disappear into the freezer for long periods during shifts, sometimes 20 or 30 minutes at a time. He'd come out looking flustered, sometimes sweating despite being in a freezer. Once, Rachel walked past the freezer door and heard a strange sound from inside. A low hum, like machinery, but also something else. Something that sounded almost like whispering. Rachel mentioned it to her coworker, a guy named Marcus, who'd worked there for 2 years. Marcus got quiet. "Yeah," he said. "I've heard that too. I asked Dennis about it once. He told me the freezer's ventilation system makes weird noises." But Marcus trailed off, looking uncomfortable. "I don't know. Something's off about that freezer." Rachel's curiosity turned into obsession. She started paying closer attention to Dennis's behavior. She noticed he got deliveries sometimes, late at night after closing, when only he was there. Unmarked trucks pulling up to the back door. She saw it once on the security footage when she stayed late to help with inventory. Dennis had shooed her away when she asked about it. "Supplier stuff," he muttered. "Go home, Rachel." Then one night, everything came to a head. Rachel was closing with Marcus. Dennis had left early, which was unusual. He'd seemed agitated all day, distracted. Around 10 p.m., Marcus went to grab something from the storage room near the freezer. Rachel was wiping down tables in the front when she heard Marcus yell. Not a scream, but a shout of alarm. She ran to the back and found Marcus standing in front of the freezer. The padlock was off. The door was open. Dennis forgot to lock it. Marcus said, his voice shaking. "Rachel, you need to see this." Rachel approached the freezer, her heart pounding. The cold air rolled out as she stepped inside. At first, everything looked normal. Boxes of frozen chicken, bags of fries, the usual inventory. But then Marcus pointed to the back corner. There was a large plastic tarp covering something. Rachel felt her stomach turn. She didn't want to look, but she had to know. Marcus pulled back the tarp. Underneath were dozens of black plastic bags, the heavy-duty kind. They were labeled with dates and names. Rachel's hands were shaking as she picked one up. It was heavy, frozen solid. She read the label. M. Hernandez. 03/14. Below that, in smaller writing, organs. Rachel dropped the bag. She felt like she was going to throw up. Marcus was staring at the other bags, his face white. There were at least 30 of them, maybe more, stacked neatly in the corner. Each one labeled with a name and a date. Some of the dates went back years. "We need to call the police," Rachel whispered. Marcus nodded, but before they could move, they heard footsteps. Heavy, slow footsteps coming from the back hallway. Rachel's blood ran cold. Dennis was back. "Get out," Marcus hissed. They both ran out of the freezer, but Dennis was already blocking the hallway. He stood there, staring at them, his face expressionless. In his hand, he was holding a knife. A big one, the kind they used to cut up the chicken in the kitchen. "You weren't supposed to see that," Dennis said quietly. His voice was calm, too calm. "That freezer was locked." "Why wasn't it locked?" Rachel and Marcus backed up toward the kitchen. Dennis took a step forward. "You know, I really liked you, Rachel," he continued. "You were a good worker. But now you've made this complicated." Marcus grabbed Rachel's arm and they bolted. They ran through the kitchen, knocking over pans and trays, and burst through the front door into the parking lot. Dennis didn't chase them. When Rachel looked back, she could see him standing in the doorway, just watching, still holding the knife. They called 911 from Marcus's car. The police arrived within minutes and stormed the restaurant. Rachel and Marcus waited in the parking lot, shaking, as cops went inside. It felt like hours, but it was probably only 20 minutes before they came back out. And they brought Dennis with them, in handcuffs. The news broke the next day. Dennis had been running an illegal organ harvesting operation. He was connected to a black market network that bought and sold organs to desperate people who couldn't get transplants legally. The bodies. Rachel never got full details, and she didn't want them. But the police confirmed that some of the remains in that freezer had been there for years. Dennis had been using the restaurant as a front, hiding everything in plain sight. The restaurant shut down permanently. Rachel never went back. She still has nightmares about that freezer, about the labeled bags, about Dennis's calm voice saying, "You weren't supposed to see that." She works at a bookstore now. She'll never set foot in a fast food kitchen again. Story 3. The drive-thru voice. This last story comes from a woman named Melissa, and it's probably the strangest one of the three. Melissa was 22 and working the late shift at a burger joint in Nevada, one of those 24-hour places off the highway. It was a lonely job. Most nights, she'd only get a handful of customers between midnight and 6 a.m. Truckers, mostly. Sometimes a drunk college kid or two. The kind of people who didn't ask questions, didn't make small talk, just wanted their food and to get back on the road. Melissa didn't mind the solitude. She'd bring her headphones, listen to podcasts, clean the same counters over and over just to pass the time. But one night, something came through that drive-thru that wasn't human. And Melissa swears to this day that what she heard was real. It was around 2:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. Melissa remembers because Tuesdays were always the deadest nights. She hadn't had a customer in over an hour. She was in the back, restocking supplies and counting inventory, when she heard the drive-thru sensor ding. The sound echoed through the empty restaurant, making her jump. Someone had pulled up to the speaker. She walked over to the headset and put it on, pressing the button. "Welcome to Burger Barn, what can I get for you?" she said, trying to sound awake and professional. For a few seconds there was only static. That wasn't unusual. Sometimes the speaker system acted up, especially late at night. But this static felt different. It wasn't just white noise. There was a texture to it, almost like breathing. Like something was on the other end, listening to her. Melissa was about to speak again when a voice came through. But it wasn't a normal voice. It was distorted, crackling, like it was coming from an old radio buried underground. And it was wrong. The pitch was too low, inhuman, and the words were stretched out, almost slurred, like they were being played at half speed. "Two cheeseburgers, no onions." Melissa felt a chill run down her spine. The voice didn't sound human. It sounded like something trying to imitate a human. Something that had heard people speak but didn't quite understand how to do it properly. She glanced at the monitor that showed the drive-thru camera. There was a car there, but the headlights were so bright she couldn't see inside. They weren't normal headlights either. They were too white, almost blinding, like high beams but worse. The car itself looked strange too. It was boxy, old-fashioned, like something from the 1970s. Melissa knew cars. Her dad was a mechanic, and she'd never seen a model quite like this. And it was just sitting there. Not idling. Completely silent. No engine rumble, no exhaust, nothing. Okay, Melissa said slowly, her finger hovering over the speaker button. 2 cheeseburgers, no onions. Anything else? Another pause. Longer this time. The static got louder, and underneath it, Melissa could swear she heard something else. A low humming, almost like chanting, but she couldn't make out any words. Then the voice came back, even more distorted than before. "Large freeze water." Melissa's hands were shaking as she rang up the order on the register. The total came up, but she had to enter it twice because her fingers kept slipping on the keys. "Okay, your total is $8.47. Pull around to the window." She hit the button to end the speaker connection and stared at the monitor. The car didn't move for a few seconds. Just sat there, those blinding headlights pointed at the camera. Then, slowly, it rolled forward toward the window. No engine sound. No headlights dimming. Just gliding. Like it was on ice. Melissa quickly assembled the order, her heart pounding in her chest. She told herself she was being ridiculous. It was just a customer with a weird voice, maybe someone with a speech impediment, or a voice box. The car was just old and quiet. Nothing supernatural about it. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking, and she couldn't get rid of the knot of dread forming in her stomach. When the car reached the window, Melissa took a deep breath and opened it. The moment she did, she immediately regretted it. The cold that poured in wasn't normal. It was freezing, like stepping into a walk-in freezer, even though it was a warm Nevada night. Probably still 70 degrees outside. Her breath came out in visible puffs, and she felt goosebumps explode across her arms. The temperature drop was so sudden and extreme that it felt physically wrong, like the laws of nature were being bent. She looked down at the driver, and her breath caught in her throat. The person inside wasn't a person. At least, it didn't look like one. The figure was humanoid, sure, but wrong in every conceivable way. Its face was smooth, featureless, like a mannequin that had never been painted. No eyes. No nose. No mouth. Just a blank, pale surface that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It was wearing old, tattered clothing, a jacket that might have been brown once, now faded and stained with things Melissa didn't want to think about. And its hands on the steering wheel were too long, fingers stretched and thin like spider legs, each one at least 8 inches long, with too many joints. Melissa wanted to scream, but she couldn't. Her throat had closed up. She was frozen, staring at this thing, unable to move or speak or even breathe properly. The figure tilted its head, jerking it to the side in a motion that was too fast, too unnatural. It was looking at her, even though it had no eyes. She could feel its attention on her, crawling across her skin like insects. Then the voice came again. Not from the speaker this time. From the figure itself. The mouth area of its face couldn't move, since it didn't have a mouth. But the sound emanated from it anyway, crackling and distorted, like it was coming from inside its head. Or maybe from somewhere else entirely, just using the figure as a conduit. Food. That single word snapped Melissa out of her paralysis. Her survival instinct kicked in, overriding her fear. She grabbed the bag of food and the water cup and shoved them out the window, not caring if they spilled, just wanting this thing to take them and leave. The figure's long fingers wrapped around the bag, and Melissa saw that the tips of its fingers were dark, almost black, like they were frostbitten or burned. The moment it touched the food, the car lurched backward. Not in reverse. It didn't shift gears or roll backward naturally. It just moved backward, like it was being pulled by invisible strings, sliding across the pavement without any momentum or acceleration. It moved away from the window, back toward the speaker, those blinding headlights never dimming. And then it was gone. Not drove away. Vanished. 1 second it was there, sliding backward, and the next second the parking lot was empty. No taillights fading into the distance. No sound of an engine. Just gone, like it had never existed. Melissa slammed the window shut so hard the glass rattled. She stood there, hyperventilating, her whole body shaking uncontrollably. She could still feel the cold in the air, even though the temperature had returned to normal. After a few minutes, when she could finally breathe again, she stumbled over to the security computer. She had to know. She had to see proof that what just happened was real. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely work the mouse, but she managed to pull up the drive-thru camera footage. She scrolled back to 2:30 a.m. to when she'd first heard that voice. And her heart sank into her stomach. There was no car. The footage showed the empty drive-thru, the speaker standing alone under the fluorescent light. Then it jumped to her at the window, and the timestamp showed 2:34 a.m. The video showed her opening the window, holding out the food and water, to nothing. Just empty air. Her hands extended into the darkness. Something invisible took the items from her hands, and then she slammed the window shut. The timestamp matched perfectly. She'd been at that window. She'd seen that thing. But according to the camera, there was no car, no figure, nothing. Just Melissa, serving food to empty space. Melissa didn't hesitate. She quit that job the same night. She didn't even finish her shift. She grabbed her purse, her phone, her keys, and walked out, leaving the restaurant unlocked with all the lights on. She didn't care if she got fired officially or if they docked her pay. She was never coming back. She drove straight home, called her manager from her car, and told him she quit. When he asked why, she hung up. She didn't owe him an explanation. She's never worked fast food again. And she refuses to use drive-thrus anymore, no matter how convenient they are. She'll park and go inside, or she'll just skip the meal entirely. Because she knows now, with absolute certainty, that sometimes what pulls up to that speaker isn't looking for food. It's looking for something else. Something she can't explain and doesn't want to understand. And she doesn't want to know what would have happened if she'd hesitated, if she hadn't given it what it asked for. Some nights, when she's driving home late, she still sees old boxy cars in her rearview mirror. And every time, her blood runs cold until they pass her or turn off the road. Because she knows that thing is still out there somewhere. Still pulling up to drive-through windows. Still ordering food in that distorted, inhuman voice. And some poor worker, working the late shift just like she did, is going to open that window and see what she saw. She just hopes they're smart enough to run.